We are here on primary eve. So much to talk about.
Big night. Big night. I am a somewhat practicing Jew, and so, this is as close as I get to a Christmas Eve type feeling is the night before an election. So I'm pretty excited about tomorrow's votes. We've been doing, obviously, a lot of coverage at Gotham Gazette, as you have at City Limits, many of our colleagues. Lots to discuss, lots to dissect, some amazing coverage of candidates, races, money flowing in at the last minute, money being spent, people not campaigning, the governor hiding his public events on the last day before the primary because he doesn't want reporters there to ask him questions. There's a lot going on.
I think you and I are political junkies and are professionally and morally committed to covering elections because we think it's important. So we were going to cover these races anyway, and we talked about this months ago. I think it's safe to say that this has ended up being a more interesting election season than I anticipated, really almost across the board, from the governor's race, raising, I think, a lot of interesting issues, lieutenant governor's race, which has not occurred in our lifetimes, really. The attorney general's race, obviously, kind of being dropped on us mid-year. All the state senate candidacies, a lot of big themes, a lot of interesting local races, a lot of compelling personalities. So it really has been worth covering. It's
been great. I mean, it's as a political junkie as well, it's fascinating, it's interesting, it's fun. It's also very serious. There's a lot on the line. There's a major struggle for the soul here of the Democratic Party in New York. It obviously has national implications as well. We're seeing this across the country where you have the sort of progressive wing really fighting with the more establishment. I hesitate sometimes to say centrist, but in some cases more centrist, I guess we could say. You obviously saw this with the Bernie Sanders-Hillary Clinton primary where she was sort of being coronated, and then he said not so fast, even though he's not even really a member of that party. But it galvanized a lot of people on the left, and we're seeing that very much in New York. And folks should know, of course, that the real action happening tomorrow is on the Democratic side. Republicans have avoided any primaries in the 4 statewide positions, and mostly there's no primaries against sitting Republicans across the board, and Democrats have not done that, not only in the statewide positions, except comptroller, where Tom DiNapoli's sitting back and relaxing, but in these IDC races for state senate, which we've had many of those candidates and their challengers on this program, and even other races. So it's really a fascinating day coming tomorrow on the Democratic side. Many races to be aware of, to vote in if you're eligible. I should say there are a few Republican primaries. There's a state Senate race in Queens, an assembly race on Staten Island, a couple others. So it's not totally devoid of that action.
We have had many of those Democratic candidates because that is where the action is on our show. And today's show, because it's primary eve, is going to be a bit of a break in format. We are going to have a guest in a little while, and Ben will talk about that soon. But really, we're going to be discussing some of the races we've been following, sort of getting to some of the big storylines for folks who are just tuning in, because some folks are just tuning in on primary eve, and that's fine. We also want to hear what you're thinking about, what your questions are. So we're opening up the phones right away at WBAI 99.5 FM. The number is 347-335-0818. Again, 347-335-0818. Call in. Tell us what's on your mind. A quick call so we can get lots of thoughts in, including all of our own. But we want to hear from you. And Ben, you mentioned the seriousness of the race. And really, I think it's been framed even in this last week. Traditionally, the primary week can feel a little quiet in the city because of the September 11th anniversary, because of Jewish holidays. But we actually had a couple of huge stories, or at least they seem huge, about the governor's race come out really in the waning hours.
So we had, Governor Cuomo, we should say, over the course of this campaign has made quite a few unforced errors. Some maybe that in some ways helped him a little bit. He had this, moment where he said America was never that great, which mostly folks on the right really picked up on, but he also wound up having to clean that up, and he was even attacked by some on the left, and Cynthia Nixon poked him on that. But more recently, even, he seemed to possibly rush this bridge opening. He brought in Hillary Clinton to do a ribbon cutting on Friday, 6 days before the primary. He's been very much using the powers of his office to highlight himself and his accomplishments.